Our opening scene starts by showing us a hand knocking on a door with no face to be seen. This immediately makes the viewer wonder what might be happening and creates enigma codes and suspense, especially since there was a pause after the loud knock. An over-the-shoulder shot of the character opening the door and revealing the faces behind the knock is then shown. The characters we see are a white Arab and a black character wearing a headscarf. This shows a representation of the BAME community. Adding an over-the-shoulder shot conforms to the horror genre as it allows the audience to feel as if they are part of the events occurring. It also gives them a sense of realism. When the characters walk in with a pan movement following them, we can see that the scene takes place in a theater room. Making the theater room in low-key lighting conforms to the horror genre as it makes the setting scarier. After that, we see a table with snacks that we used as a prop to portray teenagers' bad eating habits, and how they enjoy snacking whilst hanging out with their friends, showing a realistic representation of teenagers. The appearance of teenagers conforms to the horror genre since a lot of horror films revolve around teenage characters and their target audience are teenagers. A close-up shot of the female protagonist is seen with non-diegetic whispers playing over it. A close-up shot in that event is necessary because we use a close-up shot when we want to capture the character's raw emotions, which makes the audience worry about the character. Including a female protagonist conforms to the horror genre as female characters are portrayed as vulnerable. Therefore, including them can conform to the genre as the horror genre's aim is to make the audience feel anxiety and empathy towards the protagonist. Adding a female protagonist with mental health issues raises awareness about mental health. It allows the audience to learn about the importance of mental health or connect with the characters if they suffer from the same problems. In addition to that, whispers are conventional and conform to the horror genre as they surprise the audience by suddenly appearing after a quiet atmosphere in an unexpected way. When the female protagonist turns to see where the whispers are coming from and then turns back ahead, a jump scare with a black shadow figure is seen and non-diegetic eerie sound is heard. Adding a jump scare and eerie sound with it is conventional and conforms to the horror genre because it creates dread and terror within the viewer. When the black shadow figure appears, visual binary opposition is portrayed. That is by having the antagonist and protagonist within the same frame and also the costumes they are wearing. The antagonist is seen to be wearing black-colored clothing, whereas the protagonist is seen to be wearing light-colored clothing. It shows a stereotypical presentation of what antagonists and protagonists wear in horror films. Later on in the film, we see the protagonist walk out the theater room and then walks down a long, dark pathway. This conforms to the horror genre as the character is shown to be isolated and alone in a big dark place. Being isolated in a dark setting with no one around can make the viewer feel nervous. That is because in human nature we feel uncomfortable being alone and often associate loneliness with someone suffering with mental health issues. This reinforces our representation and social awareness of mental health. This does not only conform to the horror genre, it also conforms to our psychological subgenre. As the protagonist is walking down the pathway, another jump scare of the antagonist appears, again conforming to the horror genre. When our protagonist reaches the house door and opens it, she is transported to her old school rather than entering the house. This creates enigma codes and gives no closure to the audience. When she enters the school, the colors of the opening scene changes from warm tones to cool tones. This conforms to the horror genre as cool tones can connote a change of events happening soon. It can be a warning that something bad is going to happen. Changing from warm tones to cool tones can also help the audience understand that the setting has changed. Our protagonist then starts walking down the school corridor with a shocked and confused look on her face. She is being filmed in a handheld camera movement which is conventional and conforms to the horror genre. That is because handheld movements create a sense of realism within the film and make the viewer feel uneasy. The eerie non-diegetic music playing in the background conforms to the horror genre as it builds tension within the audience and atmosphere. After that, the protagonist walks out of a glass door and is seen in a close-up shot looking ahead with a shocked look on her face. A shot of a school playground appears and a POV shot from the protagonist's POV walking towards a bench is shown. The use of a POV shot is conventional and conforms to the horror genre as it allows the viewer to feel as if they are the one experiencing the events happening, which creates dread within them. Furthermore, loud non-diegetic horror sound is heard in the background as the POV shot is playing. Then a flashback starts playing. In the flashback, we notice a change of colors. The colors appear to be less pigmented and dull. This tells us the events playing happened in the past. In the flashback, we see the protagonist getting bullied by her friends. This raises awareness about bullying and the negative effect it has on people. It also links back to mental health problems and how a lot of teenagers suffer from them nowadays. When the flashback ends, the shadowy figure is then seen touching the protagonist, and that's when the protagonist wakes up. This conforms to the psychological subgenre as it allows the viewer to be active and try to understand what happened, still giving them no closure. The protagonist then looks around and finds her friends dead. Death is a convention of the horror genre as it creates an eerie atmosphere which makes the viewer startled. High angle of the protagonist in distress is then portrayed to make the audience feel empathetic towards her. A representation of how humans react over someone's death is shown in our opening. The opening ends with a zoom in on the shadow figure's lantern which then fades to black and the movie title appears. The title is conventional to horror as it was bloody and red, and that is how most horror movie titles are designed as. It also creates contrast with the black background.